It's now 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to the WISD Board of Trustees to order. Please let the record show that all 7 trustees are in attendance, and that the meeting has been duly called and notice of the meeting has been duly posted for time and manner required by law. First item on our agenda is the invocation, which will be given by Mr. Schoolfield, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance by Mrs. Kriegel.
Father, thank you for the opportunity.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, Ms. Bridges, my understanding we do not have anyone signed up to speak open forum tonight. Okay. Moving along, we'll go to item 3 under reports, be TASB employee opinion survey results. Is that you, Dr. King?
Yes, sir. We have our special guest from TASB, Ms. Guillory. Pack up your name, Ms. Guillory.
Yes, Guillory.
The board began working with TASB area. So we had TASB first do a review, departmental review of HR.
Yes.
And then they suggest the next step is to check with our employees, because it doesn't matter how good you say you are, it's how good other people say you are. And so, Ms. Guillory?
Yeah, I'm Janelle Guillory. I'm very glad to get to speak to you tonight about the employee survey. And so first we'll cover, So first we'll cover some administrative items about how the survey was conducted. Hello? I'll just lean in. I'll lean in. Okay, it is projecting, great. The survey was conducted online in January of this year, and we sent email invitations out to your employees as well as several reminders. If employees didn't have regular access to email as part of their job, then they were able to submit paper surveys, which we did data entry for. And so having TASB administer the survey provides a layer of confidentiality that helps employees feel more confident and comfortable sharing their opinions. This is very high tech. I'm not used to this. The last place that we were scrounging for batteries for the clicker.
We'll stick around.
So this year, 880 employees responded. That was a 67% response rate, which is quite good. 60 to 70% is typical for employee surveys across all industries. And often in the first year of a survey, the response will be a little bit lower than later years, just because employees aren't familiar with the process. They don't know when to expect it or what the results are going to look like. So often, if the district shows how they're using the results and it was a positive experience, response rates will go up in future years. As far as demographics, so who responded? Who did we hear from? The largest group was teachers, which matches employee demographics. It was about half of respondents. The next largest groups were those campus instructional support positions and auxiliary support. As far as time here in your district, it was very well distributed, which means that of those we heard from, we got a wide variety of experiences and backgrounds. For work location, it also matched your employee demographics quite well. The most common work locations were the elementary schools, followed by the high school and junior highs. Now you know more about who responded, we can talk about what they said a little bit more. As far as factors in job satisfaction, respondents were shown a long list of things and asked which ones contribute to their job satisfaction. The number one item was respectful treatment of all employees, followed by compensation and benefits, and work that is meaningful to them, with relationship with coworkers squeaking in at just over half. After that, most of the questions were asked in the form of a scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree with a no opinion option. For the report that you have, as well as the rest of the results here, we'll combine strongly agree and agree to indicate a positive response. When I go through each topic, I'll show the highest agreement in green and the lowest in yellow, just so you have a sense of the range of responses. And as you'll see, yellow is caution. It doesn't mean it's bad. Sometimes the lowest item is still very high, as you'll see. For job satisfaction, it's the perfect example. 99% of respondents like the work they do here. 89%, the lowest, is still very high, nearly unanimous, would recommend their campus or department to a friend as a good place to work. For working conditions, 93% feel comfortable or feel secure in their employment with Waxahachie ISD, and 78% say the workload is appropriate for their position currently. Come on, no, too far. It's a little aggressive there. From working conditions, we can move on to compensation and benefits. So 90% of respondents, there was a tie. They said the leave time provided here is adequate for them, and they also said that they get the help they need with benefits questions. 55%, so quite a big gap from the highest to lowest, say pay is fair for the work that's done. And this is a good place to talk about that sometimes perceptions of compensation rely on other things. So on this last slide, workload is appropriate for the position was the lowest. If I feel my workload is not appropriate for my position, I might not think my pay is fair for the work I'm doing. So you can find interrelated items like that as you go through as a district and look at priorities, you may find lines that connect that hit multiple items where you can see a bigger pattern or see a tip for how to get into an approach, whether it's communication as far as demystifying how pay is calculated, or we got well rated on benefits. What can we do to emulate that? Relationship with coworkers is another that's very high. And so 96% like the people they work with, and 89% say their team works well together. Relationship with supervisor is, again, an important one. Those day-to-day relationships really make or break your workday. So 88% say they are allowed to make decisions within their scope of authority. So they're not feeling micromanaged is another way to think of it. And 83% say their supervisor clearly explains district decisions to them as an employee. And so another way to interpret this, because they're so close, 88 to 83%, there's not one area where supervisors are really struggling. It's pretty consistent across all of those items. As far as district communications, 91% of your respondents feel that the district shares important news and events with them. And 72% of respondents say that they have a way to express concerns to district leaders. And so a survey is certainly a part of improving that, but there are a lot of elements that go into that as far as how can I share those experiences on a daily basis. For district leadership, 84% trust the leaders to act in student best interests, and 81% believe leaders value the employees here in the district. So a lot of these topics, you'll see a very narrow gap between the highest and lowest. So responses are very consistent on all of these topics. For relationship with the board, 87% say that they feel the board is committed to creating conditions for student success. And 83% feel the board is visible, approachable, and are positive ambassadors for the district. So again, it's a very narrow range with those consistent results. Campus environment begins the first section that's shown to a limited number of respondents. Campus environment is shown to teachers and campus instructional staff. 92% said the principal treats them with respect, and 84% feel their principal is effective in leading that campus toward its goals. Curriculum and instruction narrows that further, just teachers now. 94% say teachers are held to high standards here. And at the lower end, here's another larger gap. 59% believe teachers of special populations get adequate resources. And this is an area that's more common to see. That lower item is on that special populations question. And so like pay, this could be impacted by communication, resources provided across a number of areas. And so it's important to look as a district, you know the programs and initiatives best.
So is this much of a gap for a district our size typical or atypical?
So this is typical on curriculum and instruction. It's much more typical.
Okay. And so this would be one of the areas we would look at of what, okay. So I would like to talk to you tomorrow about the successful ways other districts found out what they could do to make people, or I don't think it's make people believe, that we can make certain that teachers of special populations are getting adequate resources.
Yes, and we can talk about that. A lot of times it does get into doing focus groups or talking to individual campuses.
Okay.
Student discipline, we stay with that narrower group, so just teachers. 81% feel that they receive appropriate assistance with their disciplinary issues, and 71% say the student code of conduct is enforced consistently and fairly. Then at the end of the survey, there were some sections where respondents could tell us what departments they'd interacted with this year and then provide additional information about those. For the Human Resources Department, 96% of respondents said the staff is courteous and respectful, and 91% said the policies, forms, and information they needed were easy to access. And you'll see this as a trend through the departments. For the business office, 97% said staff is courteous and respectful, and the same percent said that they get help and info needed from the staff. 93% said policies, forms, and info are easy to access. For curriculum and instruction, 96% say the staff is courteous and respectful, and 87% said that they get the help and information needed. Maintenance had 99% courteous and respectful, and 93% say that the staff was responsive to calls and emails for assistance when needed. The comments and suggestions are what I call a big open text area where people can tell us anything else they feel we need to know. So 133 of the respondents, or 15%, took advantage of that and wrote something in that free open text area. That included accolades from 60 people, complaints from 82, and suggestions from 31. So what my team does is we read all of the comments and we categorize them across 50 pre-selected topics that we often hear, and then we add topics for however many we need for that district. And so for your district, I think we added 40 or 50 more topics that came up as we were reading. And so we have a lot of practice doing this, and we tally them so that we can see this person wrote a paragraph, they had 2 positive things, 3 complaints, and a suggestion, and that gets tallied up here with the topics shown in the report. The most common topics, let's see, most common accolade was the district is a good place to work. The most common complaint was about inconsistent or unfair student discipline. And then the most common suggestion was to increase available technology via Chromebook or one-to-one with tablets. So what's next? And that gets somewhat to Dr. Kane's point about what do you do next? So dig deeper, and that has to do with the district's priorities and the superintendent priorities and department or principal priorities as far as where do we need to look? What have we heard from other employee sources? What have we heard from other outsiders? What are we hearing from our administrators? And then connect it to goals that you've already set. And so which things were already in the pipeline to be looked at, or that we may have made progress on through the year since that January survey, or the program was mid-year, we needed to give it some time. But then set new goals moving forward based on what you found and maybe what surprised you if some of these things weren't expected. And then check back, which can certainly be an annual survey, but it can also be those focus groups that I talked about where it's a smaller group of people that are involved with one initiative or one program, or on a topic that has come up that surprised you. And then I'm happy to take any questions about the survey.
Trustees, are there any questions or comments?
I have a comment. Didn't really get to address this in the workshop, but it kind of ties into some thoughts I had about open lines of communication. It looked like we were at 72% on the survey of people that felt like they had an open line of communication to their leaders. And I spoke with Ms. Authier about this in between the break, and just like the Wyoming situation with their traffic, I just want to make sure, and I'm not saying we're not, I just want to either create or maintain the culture where principals have an avenue to voice their opinion or their concerns, whether it be safety or anything else. And I know we got a lot of principals in the room tonight, and that one stuck out to me as far as the survey goes, as far as it was kind of a low number of, and I don't care if it's a shoebox. I mean, if they want to write suggestions or just have some kind of avenue to where they can communicate with their leaders and voice their concerns. And I know Dr. Kane's been working hard on that here lately.
And what I would like to, why don't you get the rest of the questions, because yes, I would like to.
Did you have one, Ms. Kriegel?
Well, I'm just curious, so we're not going to get it broken down by campuses or whether, because the percentages kind of seem off to me, you know, I mean.
I will be sending that tonight.
Okay.
In fact, I could, if I had my laptop, I've got it ready to send.
Okay.
Don't let me leave here without forgetting to send it, because I actually have it in a PDF. So, and the campuses will receive theirs. And so, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Because it does make it more meaningful to kind of get a picture of.
Just looking at the percentages of.
Right.
Got the elementary.
Well, there are some places that are heaven here, I will tell you, and Turner's one of them. And Finley, it's like
Right, exactly.
a little slice of heaven, those two campuses. Any other questions? Then I'd like to say what I'd like to do
Do
next.
you have something to start in there?
Oh, just in relation to John's comment, I feel like we're making improvements, though. I mean, I feel like if you would compare maybe now to a year ago, I think we are getting better as far as people feeling like they can, at least that's the feedback I've gotten, you know, people feeling like they can voice their opinion. Or,
But we have, and this is one step.
Right.
The board actually laid the groundwork for this by having this. And tomorrow we have DLT, and that's where Ms. Blaylock's already got that on the agenda, because we want to work with the campuses individually, like you're saying, with their campuses, but also to make certain from a district level, like you said, Mr. Rogers, that the principals feel like they can talk to us and say, this is what we need. And that's why one of the real beauties of this is, after this, we'll meet with everybody, and I'd like to get back with the board and say, here's what can't work on everything, here's the main thing. And then next year, we do this again, and that's our report card. Were we able to change those numbers without other numbers?
Dr. Kane, are you also doing like a superintendent's council or something so that teachers feel like that they do have
Well,
input?
good thought. Yes, we had a good thought. I think my idea was bad. We had a group of teachers. We were overwhelmed. There were so many questions that Ms. Bridges came to the rescue and kind of talked with all of the cabinet people individually so we could hurry. But I think that's okay, but it's not the same as sitting down. For example, the nurses had more questions. So one practice was Mr. Avenshine literally met with all the nurses and Nurse Bousquet, and that was really a home run. So we're going through this. Yes, ma'am. We're trying to find that sweet spot.
Thank you.
But thank you for asking.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our report will be the 2019-2020 Templeton Demographics Report.
I think our gentleman is
Templeton is here,
approaching the
correct?
bench.
Good evening.
How you doing, sir?
I think, can I do this on my own? Where it says fifth grade. It's right in front of me, I'm sure. Here it is. Okay. Then you just side this up? All right, awesome. Good. Close enough. Since it's previous, it's no we did have it up a little bit ago. that it? Oh, there it is. It's coming. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Awesome. Good evening. So oh wait, that's something else. Okay. So this is our demographic report. You know, we began the research in 1819, so beginning in the fall, and so this is ran through. It's an annual report that we update for the board. So one thing that our team does, we start by just looking at economic and understanding economic conditions just in Dallas-Fort Worth area, because the economic, development in Dallas-Fort Worth really kind of drives the region. The Dallas-Fort Worth area has been adding over 100,000 jobs now for several years in a row, consecutive months. It's probably dropped. This was done back in November, so keep in mind that's the last time our team met with your group. I've got a few updates in here, and as of the first of the year, this number's been tweaked down to about 95,000. So we're still adding right at 100,000 jobs a year, which is about twice the rate of the national growth. Unemployment rate's well below 5%, which is considered full employment. So we're looking at 3.2%, in DFW, and Waxahachie at 3.2% as well. So very strong unemployment rates. And we're adding over 35,000 homes a year in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So very strong. We've likely kind of peaked. That 35,000 number might be just about where DFW plateaus. I think 7 or 8 years ago, with the last time that there was a housing surge, that number got as high as 50,000, but that turned out to be not very healthy in the end. So builders are staying in check. Just local economic activity, just some things that our team has uncovered or have seen, and I'm sure you guys are aware of. Cardinal Glass that could be adding 30 jobs. Buc-ee's is always a fun place to add. It's 150 jobs there. Walgreens, we got a couple smaller things that have been adding, just some strong economic growth. I mean, these residual things come as housing comes. It's kind of that chicken and egg thing that we always talk about. If we look at the actual housing market since 2010, you can see that we've seen a strong change in existing home sales and new home sales. Back in 2010, you're adding almost 500 existing homes were being sold, and about 150 new homes were being built. Fast forward about 8 years, and the turnover now in existing homes is just over, almost 1,100, and we're closing about 454 homes. Keep in mind, this is going to be a little different than some numbers you might see. This is based on deed transactions. So we now pull the deed transactions every month of all the homes that turn over in Waxahachie ISD. So this is specific to your school district. The yellow and green that you see on there, that's distressed properties. Foreclosures, REO sales, which are also like bank-owned foreclosures. Those numbers seem to have dropped down quite a bit up in Waxahachie, where you can kind of see that number's almost going away. And another look at these deed transactions and REO sales is just by percent. About 70% of all home sales are in existing homes. Almost 30% are in new homes, and you can see that your REO and foreclosures represent, just less than 3% of all home sales. The average new home price is now at $318,000, and average sale for an existing home has jumped to $241,000. And this is pretty amazing. You begin to see these charts. I'm going to scroll on up here to where you can see this change. Back in 2010, your existing home prices were selling for about $145,000. That's jumped by almost $100,000 to $241,000 for an existing home, and then your new homes have doubled. And so what you could buy in 2010 for $156,000 is just over $300,000 right now. So very, very, very strong. But it's also what's driving the existing home sales is kind of that high-end new home sale, because it's just not always an affordable product. We zoom in on the region. You can see where development's occurring throughout Dallas-Fort Worth just by school district. Waxahachie has started. Now we're talking new homes only. We're talking about starts of 685 homes, in the preceding 12 months, and closing 612 homes. So closing is an occupied home. Your VDL, or your vacant developed lots, VDL are lots that are ready to be built on right now. There's 922 vacant developed lots. This kind of gives us an idea of trend or available for building, and just over 19,500 futures. This is development. A lot of it's just being talked about. It's speculative. They're not always moving dirt, but in some cases there are. It does tell us that there's quite a pipeline, coming in Waxahachie there. Lots of vacant land. Yeah, that's Emory Lake. We also have an opportunity to look at that quarterly. Now you can see that this was updated just through the third quarter, which would have been just after school started through the end of September. Now, I do have some fourth quarter data that's been out since then, but you were trending at about 574 homes in 2017. In 2018, that number is 526, but I saw a quarterly report that it jumped to like 170. So you actually started well over 600 homes. So that's your highest start rate that we've tracked in Waxahachie. And your closings also jumped to well over 600 homes because we tracked about another 170 closings in the fourth quarter. So you're doing over 600 homes a year in Waxahachie right now. Where is that occurring? The closings, this might be, I guess you have it in front of you. It looks kind of busy because it's all around that Felty, that Felty area there. But these are where your new home closings. So this is kind of where your activity occurred leading up to this year's enrollment, really. I mean, this is kind of the yesterday. Where did homes close? So you had 515 homes. So almost, over 90% of your closings occurred in just these 10 developments last year. And you can see that these developments, however, that VDL column, there's 252 vacant developed lots. So for them to stay on that pace, they've got to deliver some lots. But what's really going to happen is you're going to see some other developments kind of emerge to replace those. So you're going to see some continued turning. But if the vacant lots don't come online, there could be a little bit of lag, in the remainder of 2018 the remainder of 2019 going into 2020. And I can show you that vacant developed lots, just to give you that idea. If you look at the top 10, where most of your VDL are, where lots ready to be built on right now, there's only about 265 closings. So in other words, those are areas where they've got lots, but they're not really closing homes yet. They're just kind of getting started. So those zeros represent areas where they've got VDL, but they just haven't got the homes done yet. Now, again, keep in mind, this is through the end of the third quarter, so we know there's been some activity in some of these developments since that time. And if we look where future lots are, like I said, there's over 19,000 futures, so we could get hung up pretty quick in there. But there's a lot of Wedgeworth with 8,700 futures. I mean, that's a strong number there that they're going to have to get going on the far west side there. 4,000 in Saddlebrook Estate. So just the two of those together have over 12,000 future lots, and Lonesome Dove with another 1,100. What I want to see here, and so this now takes and summarizes kind of the information I just talked about and just kind of summarizes it all on one chart. So you can see here that 685 starts. The color represents where activity is. That's a simple way to put it. Yellow color is where there's the most activity, green the second most, and that salmon, I'll call it salmon color, is where you see the third most activity. One column that you might want to take a look at is that inventory column, that 347. I think that's important because inventory combines those under construction homes, those 279 homes that are under construction, with all the homes that are finished but vacant. So at the end of the third quarter, there were 347 homes that were either finished but vacant or under construction. So those homes are likely now closing or have closed. So that kind of tells you that trend to kind of keep at that 600 number, pushing close to 700 is likely to continue just because that pipeline's already sitting there. This is an overview of all the housing that we're tracking within Waxahachie ISD. The green colors represent areas where we know there's active home building going on right now. The yellow are areas where there's future, that big one in the middle where it is the Wedgeworth, in that Wedgeworth zone, that's that one we talked about, over 8,000 lots. We've got I can't really show an arrow. Can't see my finger, can you? The far north, the big yellow in the far north there, that's where Lonesome Dove is with over 1,000 lots. And where you see a red outline, that means they're actively working the ground. So they're actively working the ground to deliver more lots. So we've got about 1,100 lots under development, and that's where your next round of growth is going to come from. Moving forward, I can just show you a few of these. North Grove, again, we've got the North Side Elementary section that's got 281 total lots. They closed 50 to 60 homes last year. They've only got 9 VDL, 132 are occupied, and so they're moving pretty steady. 14 homes under construction. If you flip the other side of the road, where the Shackelford zone there, they've got 1,185 lots, 995 futures. 152 vacant developed lots. Again, they're ready to go on those vacant developed lots now. The groundwork's underway and the first homes are under construction. And that was, I looked at this today, they've actually closed homes now in that Shackelford zone if you've driven out by there. So that's moved pretty quick, and that 237 and that's that 0.46 yield, just for anyone that's kind of looking at that. That's the students per house, just to kind of give you an idea what kind of development that is. So 0.46 is pretty simply about, you get about 5 students for every 10 homes, just to kind of give you a simple idea. So if you think of 1,185 lots, you're probably going to end up with almost 600 students there at some point in time, just in that Shackelford area. And I think there's a development right to the south of that. I was thinking I saw something right to the south of that's Shackelford. You can see, you can't see my finger, but just south of there, there's a lot of construction already going on as well. Settlers Glen, 675 total lots, 102 of those are futures. They're yielding just 0.37 right now with 487 homes occupied, so not quite as high a yield. That'll probably begin to increase, with time. They have 37 homes under construction. The Garden Valley area, Garden Valley Farms, Garden Valley West, it's Garden Valley, if you will. They're 200, everything's in there from 250 to 300. The Garden Valley Farms, a little bit higher price point. You can see it's yielding 0.5, so you're getting about a student for every 2 homes. And Garden Valley Ranch, which is almost done now, it's yielding 0.64, and that's kind of where things will settle in at that 0.64. Buffalo Ridge and Blue Bonnet Trail, some more futures that you can look forward to there at Blue Bonnet Trail. Buffalo Ridge is building 50 to 70 homes a year out there. There are 273 of those are occupied. That yields a 0.65, a very standard yield right there, by the junior high. And we have another one here. This is the Camden Park area. They've got 108 vacant developed lots. Phase 3 was approved with 300 lots, so they're doing 50 to 75 homes a year. So everyone at some point that 600 to 700 number might kind of be your sweet spot, because there's lots of developments, but at some point they kind of cannibalize on each other, so that they're not all going to be able to continue at the same pace. But again, this yield in Camden Park. Now, given there's only 42 homes, but right now you've got a student in every one of those homes. So that's a really high yield, and we'll see what happens there. And Saddlebrook Estates, this is a big development, over 4,000 futures, but 5 homes under construction, 284 homes are occupied, a nice 0.66 yield, very standard yield. The groundwork hasn't yet started on those future phases, so we'll see what happens. But again, there's about 284 homes occupied, 5 under construction, a little bit slower, but I think as it gets going, you're going to see some strong growth there in that part of the cliff zone. And Wedgeworth, that big, I think it used to also be called Kemp Ranch, 3,000 acres, there with 1,300 future multifamily units. That's a big development. The first lots are going to be available probably by 2020. Transitioning to we got a couple apartments to talk about. 213 market rate units that are going to be complete this summer. All construction will be complete by the end of 2019. So you'll certainly see some students there at those apartments. And there's a future apartment complex as well. The Mark on 287, 140 market rate units. So market rate don't usually yield as high, but that's still you'll still get a few students out of those as well. I don't know if it looks like someone scribbled on that or someone drove their lawnmower really funny. I don't know what that is. I didn't do it. Looking at multifamily yields and just trying to understand those as well. These are our yields. The big red dots represent areas where you have a really high yield. So those are typically either a Section 8 apartment or got some tax credit, or it's a real old apartment. You usually have the highest yields. That 0.25, the green dots, those are typically lower yielding apartments. They're probably newer or a little bit more expensive. So if we begin to look at the forecast, we finished last year, Waxahachie added just over 400 students with 8,937 students. in our enrollment. We're forecasting a very similar year coming up next year with 361 students. We think you'll get to over 400 students in a couple years. You got some big classes that are going to work through there too, but we're looking at, growth of over 400 students on average and getting close to 600 students within 10 years. So we think you're looking at about 2,000 students in the next 5 years. And by 28, 29, I think you'll be over 13,000 students in Waxahachie. And we've also broke that down at the elementary, middle, and high school level, of course, junior high. This gives you an opportunity to show you the capacities with what we're using as functional capacity. Now, keep in mind, functional capacity is about 85% of capacity. So you can see there, the highlighted ones in yellow are areas that are already over functional capacity. Now, we're looking at functional capacity total of 4,271. Now, we know that the North Grove campus, elementary campus, is going to open in 2020, I think it is, and you're going to be hitting, that's going to add about another 500 to push your functional capacity up around that 4,800 number. But it would appear that right now you're looking at 2023, assuming the housing market stays steady, the economy stays steady, but that you might be looking at, considerations certainly for another elementary school within that, in that next 5 years.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right now, where would be your guess, if that means scrolling back, to where that elementary would be?
That one there? Sorry. Let me get that slide that had all the developments on it. There's a lot of it, it would look, like the, on the west side a little bit, but there's so.
We can all see it? Wait a minute. We're going to high tech to the rescue.
If I could. It's gonna be that you see the.
Okay, let me point and you tell me if I'm doing it right.
Well, I think see where your finger, in that cliffed area there, you've got some large developments there, that are, it's all going to be a timing thing because, if you think of every, that's your North Grove campus. I was going to go to this, where this cliffed area, this area here, that's going to be happening there in the cliff zone. And then we have Saddlebrooks. We have two large developments. If you think of those 4,000 future lots, they could do, they got 284 occupied. It all depends on pace of growth at this point. But if you're going to get about 300, you're going to get about 300 elementary students for every 1,000 homes that are built. So, just think of it, if you think of it that way, you're going to do about 600 homes a year. That's 150 elementary. So, it's really, it's a tough call because I believe, I think it could still be on the east side. I think because we're so far away. I wish I could move faster. I'm sorry I'm doing this. You guys getting dizzy? I'm getting dizzy here. Okay. I just don't know how quickly, I'm pointing my finger, this area is going to go. There's a lot. We're talking about 8,000 lots, but this is kind of your.
Those are going to be the two.
Those are your trees. Right now. I don't know if y'all already have land. North Grove is going to help. The thing is, right now, North Grove is going to help relieve that. Then you're going to kind of, because you got to start looking now. I realize 2023 is going to be here, and if you back when we talk through this with districts, if it takes 2 years to get a school built, a year to get a bond, you're looking at next year having to be kind of.
So that was my question. From these numbers, you pretty much telling us we're going to need another elementary school by 2023.
I think it's all going to be how much heartache can you stand. A lot of times you want to go, if you think of maximum capacity, 5,500 would be maximum capacity. So you're sitting 2024, you might be able to push it to 2024. Everyone have a little heartache, if they go to maximum capacity. But if you want to keep your campuses in that 85% functional capacity, 2023 is I would target 2023, and if you could push it back a year, say, whoopee, saved it one more year. But I think you're going to be really tight unless, you know, like I say, there's a lot of unforeseens with the economy. But right now, I think we're looking at a situation like this 2023. And I just, so like low unemployment rate, 28% of your home sales were in new homes. We've got 19,500 planned future lots. So again, we're staying at 600 homes a year. That might be conservative. It all depends on how builders can do at that price point. We've got a lot of, there's a lot of word out there that they're trying to, you know, that anything above 300 is getting to becoming a challenge. So if they can stay in that 250 range, then you're going to be real attractive here. You know, it's just the infrastructure's, whether it's 287, you know, there's a lot of ways to get to a lot of places from Waxahachie. So Wedgeworth Elementary Zone accounts for over 50% of your planned future lots. So but again, it's 8,000 all in one spot, and I just don't know where the momentum is. We'll certainly probably know a lot more in the next 6 months, and certainly by the time we bring North Grove on. 23-24 enrollment, over 10,000 students now by 23-24. That's the story. That's the good news, or maybe, hopefully, news. I'll just leave it at that.
Are there any other questions or comments? I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah, real quick, page 6 of your presentation, you talked about average home sale price. Mm-hmm. Is there such thing as a break even to the school district? I had heard it was 180 to 200 I work for the city, so I hear things, and I didn't know if there was such a thing as a break even.
I've never worked with that, you know,
okay.
or heard that term from a taxing perspective.
Right.
Yeah, I've not.
In other words, if it's below a certain number, it costs the school to educate that 0.5 kid, or if it's above a certain number, you know, you're in good shape as far as.
Yeah. We can certainly check that out, though. That's interesting.
I just didn't know if it existed.
I mean, I've heard the term, but I'm not sure what that. It'd be pure speculation.
Mr. Rogers, I know several years ago that number was around 180,000, but I'm assuming it's increased significantly since then.
Yeah. Ryan, Mr. Colden, can you speak to that at all?
No, sir. We were just talking about it. I've heard the 180,000 thrown out as well, but I honestly don't know where that number came from. I know that I've not sat down and tried to put pen and paper to it, and with funding changes and Chapter 41 rules that come into effect, I really don't know how you would come up with a really good answer for what that break-even point would be.
Well, if we're at 318, we ought to be in, you would think, good shape on that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. McCutcheon.
The student yield in each of these different developments, some of them are a little below, 0.5%, some of them are more. Does it tell you anything in regards to families moving in here? Are those above average? Are they normal?
Those yields? Well, I can tell you that there has been a large shift in Dallas-Fort Worth area. We kind of look at each area that we look at differently. 0.65 used to be the standard yield that we would, I would just quote it everywhere where I went for an overall yield. And typically about half of that's elementary. During this boom that we've been having, this housing boom, we've seen that yield go down significantly because that price, mostly because of price points. So we've seen it dip in some areas down below 4, and it stayed down there. So that 250 and below price point is still staying right in that 0.5 range. That 300 and above, you start getting up there, those yields kind of decrease a little bit. And that's kind of how it used to be, dating myself a little bit, but a long time ago, it used to be expensive homes tend to bring in secondary students. That's usually where the kind of your family stage is at. That kind of went out the window during the last housing boom because of people had opportunities to get in homes they maybe shouldn't have got into. And now it's kind of stabilizing a little bit. And then we've now gone through this birth, there's been a decrease in birth rates. Family formations are forming later, and then the price points are so high, that they're even waiting longer because they can't afford to get in a home. So that's a long ways around.
If you go back to that slide that showed the Camden development in Clift, which the ratio was a little over 1. I believe that was
One of those, yeah.
the lowest price point. I'm assuming that's why it's over 1, because that was the lowest
Exactly.
price point.
Yeah.
Right there. There you
Now,
go.
the challenge, there's only 42 occupied so far, so that will likely go down some, but that's still really high. But you can see it's that price point. Certainly drives it down. And builders are looking for ways, so you might even see some of these developments, as they come online, they can go back and redevelop, they're kind of finding ways to make a little bit smaller lot, fit a smaller house and save money, so they could rezone some of that, replat it instead of 4,000 lots, make it 4,500
Well, the district has been
lots.
notified on some low-income housing projects that are coming,
Yes,
or applications being made, so
from apartments or single family.
apartments.
Right, and we try to track those as well. I mean, anytime the district will share that with us, we'd appreciate it, but our team is also looking at those, and because, yeah, those are quick to happen, and I know we just, I've seen them open up with 1 student per unit of an apartment, real quick.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am?
May I suggest that at the next workshop that we put this on, I meet with the with the cabinet, and we talk to the board about what, based on your information, sir, our long-range planning recommendation, that we talk with the board on what would be the next steps and what would be the best thing to.
Absolutely. It'll probably take up the entire time. But
Well, okay.
Well, I welcome
We got
that.
nothing but time.
We'd be happy to, we've done some facility planning exercises with districts before, where we just kind of build out that, do that build out, so you can begin to see, based on current trends, where that next, we could zero in on that next campus.
Well, and also because of North Grove, obviously there's going to be rezoning. So I think all of that would go kind of hand in hand and have a
Right.
plan. And again, we want to respect our district's long-range planning committee recommendations. So let's work towards that, and I'll work with the board on the best way to get to that.
Yeah, if there's somehow we
timely.
could help, yeah, just we'd be happy to come back out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
I think. Thank you.
Okay. Item C, gold data points.
Yes, Mr. President, we have, as you can tell, Ms. Blaylock and company and Mr. Boshier and company have spent a lot of time not only giving you the data, but explaining it. And the real goal is not to explain, the main purpose is not explaining it to you. It's that we're analyzing it so we can work with campuses and work with the data on where we need to go from here. So I would like to, since you've had several presentations, start saying, here is our written report. Are there any questions? Unless the board would like presentations.
Any questions or comments from trustees? If none, we're going to move to.
That
the
means you
consent
did good
agenda.
reports, Mr. Boshier and Ms. Blaylock. When you answer the questions with the report, check mark. Check mark, Mr. Boshier.
No questions or comments?
Well, they can hardly ask one now.
Okay. All right, we'll move to item 4, which will be our consent agenda. We have items A through J. As you know, we can take these all in one motion.
Oh, we missed Money Matters.
I'm sorry, I did, I'm sorry.
You have a new
Sorry,
star, a
I
rising star.
didn't see it at the top. I'm sorry, Mr. Collin. Item D, money matters. I'm sorry.
See, you are looking forward to it.
I really didn't want to hear from you.
All
Item
Mini money, man.
Okay,
two. They slipped it in on me there.
That's a new one.
Oh, here we go.
all right, there we go. Okay, board, the whole idea behind this was just to come up with some topics that, that maybe it would work best if we kind of had a give and take and a little bit of an education piece to them, allow you to ask questions, things that, I can do better of giving you information to help you make decisions, things that you would like to see us address through a budget process or through a change in our practices. So wanted to go ahead and start with the easiest topic we have, and that's debt. And that was absolute sarcasm. It's a heavy topic. It's a very, very weighted topic. And so wanted to kind of test the waters here with debt, see what we need to do to retool it, re-engineer it, reimagine it, bring it forward, and see what we can do to make this useful for you. Starting off, there are about 8 different types of debt instruments. Now, all of these are listed in state law in there somewhere. All of these have to be approved by trustees before we can enter into these agreements. General obligation bonds also have to be approved by voters before we can issue them. So the other items on here, refunding bonds do not require voter approval before they can be issued, but they do require board approval before we can issue them. And that in a refunding bond issue, all we're doing is taking the existing debt, kind of like you refinancing your mortgage. We're taking that existing debt and reissuing new debt to replace the old debt. The only reason you're going to do that is interest rates have gone down. It's more favorable to the entity and to the taxpayers to have a lower total cost going forward. Revenue bonds, you're really not going to see those. You'll see those in higher education institutions, tax anticipation notes, yada, yada, yada. So there's a bunch of different opportunities to issue debt, but again, the key component is you guys have to approve all debt issuances before we can enter into them, and then the public also has to say yes on a general obligation bond issue. General obligation bonds, it's in state law. They cannot have a maturity exceeding 40 years when they're issued. Now, with that, if you refund a general obligation bond, you can refund with new 40-year issues. That's not been the practice of Waxahachie ISD. We've refunded bonds at the same maturity level that we were, or issued new bonds at the same maturity level of the bonds we were refunding. So if the bonds had 25 years to go, the new bonds would mature in the same 25 years.
Just at a lower rate.
General obligation bonds do pledge the full faith and credit of the district. If you read the fine print in a bond issue, it is unlimited school tax bonds. So all that to say, we can go in and promise no tax increase. If values go down or assumptions are not hit, we do have the approval from voters to go in with the tax increase, or we can come up with a different strategy to pay off those debts. We can use bonds for construction, acquisition, equipping, purchase of land, energy conservation measures, or refinancing any other purchase through one of these other debt instruments that were listed on the previous page. So that's the list, and that's in the Texas Education Code. You may have heard of an advanced refunding tax exempt bond. Those actually are no longer allowed under federal law with the new changes that President Trump had put in with the tax rates and all. He took away the advanced refunding tax exempt bonds. Just some tax rate information. The statements that go out to taxpayers list one rate. It's really made up of two different rates. So there's an M&O rate, or maintenance and operation rate, and there's an INS, or an interest and sinking rate. The reason this is important is they're two different pots of money. So the INS rate, all it can do is support the legally authorized and outstanding debt of the district. So the INS rate right now is 0.3839 cents for $100 in valuation. That money can only be used for the outstanding debt of the district. So you're talking interest and principal and the pay agent fees that go with existing debt issuances. The M&O side, that's the money that's used for utilities, for maintenance, that's used for teachers and salaries and staff. The M&O side can also be used for debt service if it needs to be. So if you think back to 2014, when we did the tax swap, what we were doing, we were increasing the M&O rate, reducing the INS rate. That yielded us some additional funding from the state, but it also created a $4 million liability in the budget to pay debt service. Because values have gone up and we've added additional values to the roll that have exceeded our expectations, that number has gone from 3.9 million that we're to pay annually in debt down to 2 million out of the general fund. And based on our current debt schedule, that number is going to go down to 0 here in about the next 3 years. So just to kind of clear up the tax rate and all that fun stuff, the INS rate is capped on a new issuance at 50 cents per $100 in valuation. The M&O rate is capped at $1.17 and of course makes up about 2/3 of the tax bill that homeowners or taxpayers receive. Just want to give you a tax rate trend just to kind of show you what the total rate's been. The increase in there between fiscal year 15 and 16 would be the 12.5 cent INS rate increase for the $125 million in bonds that supported the new high school and some renovation projects. Bond servicing. So we service our bond, we make bond payments twice a year. We make it in February and make it in August. We wire those debt service payments because you're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $16 million for the fiscal year. So we don't issue checks. Those are about the only payments that we do issue wire payments for. We have a very stable future service requirements when you look out going forward.
The next bullet is a little bit convoluted. The point I was trying to make there is we have about 1.6 million in payment capacity left right now with our existing debt. So if you take our values, divide it by 100 times the 11 cents, because we're at 38.39 per 100 with the 50-cent cap, we have about 1.6 million we can make in additional debt service payments annually before we hit our cap. I do know that capital appreciation bonds was a topic, at least when I circulated this presentation amongst my office. We have not issued any new bond issues with capital appreciation bonds since 2007. That being said, we have refunded 4 or 3 issues that did have capital appreciation bonds, and they're still outstanding issues at this point. Again, all we did was refund those, or refinance those actually, refinance those in the same debt structure that they were there. So we have not issued any new debt with capital appreciation bonds since 2007. This is a schedule of the future debt service requirements. The first 5 years, you're looking at a 1 year, or the first 5 lines through 2023, you're looking at a single year payment. So for a single year, fiscal year 19, the year that we're in, we'll pay about 16.1 million in total debt service payments for the fiscal year. When you look at 24 through 28, down there about 6 lines down, that is a conglomeration for those 5 years together. When you average those out on an annual basis, it's about 16.7 million. So when I say fairly level, you're looking at about a $500,000 increase per year, and that's going to be in about 5 to 10 years from now. So 500,000 on 16 million really is pretty level for our debt service payments. This takes us out to, can't really see the bottom of it, but 2047 is our final maturity on the bonds that we just issued for North Grove. And you're looking at about $6 million a year in those last 4 years or so, average debt service payments with those bonds. Transparency. Wanted to highlight that all this information is available on our website. It's not the easiest stuff to read and to find, but annual audit reports, we do have 5 years on there, and it's generally around page 45 of the audit report. It's going to be in the footnotes, and it's going to be about note 5 in the footnotes. So you can see this information in every annual audit report. It's also on our district webpage about debt. And then there are a couple of external sites to direct you to. The Comptroller's Debt at a Glance website. When you go to that website, it immediately loads up a table, a surf table. So you go in and put the entity you're looking for and the fiscal year you're looking for, and it'll give you the same debt information that they have for all of our outstanding issuances. And same thing with the Texas Bond Review Board. They're both very good websites, not under our control at all, that compile all the existing debt information as they know it. Specifically regarding the 2015 bond issue, it was for $125 million. All projects have been completed on time and on budget. It did have the 12.5-cent tax rate increase to the INS rate. We're currently looking for an agreed upon procedures, that's the AUP side. AUP, agreed upon procedures engagement, to have a new financial auditor come in and review all of the expenditures to ensure that we were compliant with our bond authority. And then as part of issuing the bonds, we had to get our debt ratings confirmed or reaffirmed. So we do have a AA- by Fitch's and an AA3 from Moody's Investor Service. Moody's did make one comment that our fund balance as a percent of our operating revenues is notably higher than the U.S. median for AA3 rated entities, and they just issued that March 8th. So it was really pretty good testament to where we stand as a district in terms of finances with our bonds, in addition to our ability to issue new debt. Okay, these are kind of the questions that came up as I circulated amongst my staff, so I assumed it was kind of a general question that people may have. So our debt is supported by the tax rate, by that INS tax rate. So as we issue new debt, it has no bearance on the M&O side of things. As long as we've done our diligence and we know we don't overestimate what housing is going to do, what our values are going to do, issuing of new debt does not take funds away from hiring new teachers. It doesn't take money away from salaries. It doesn't take money away from providing the things from a maintenance and operation side that our campuses need to educate students. So if we do get a little bit out there and we don't meet our expectations when we're issuing debt, we have two options. We can use M&O funds to do that, or again, these obligations are unlimited school tax bonds. We can also raise the INS rate on the backside if we need to. So if with the 2015 bonds, if our estimate of value growth didn't occur, so we estimated 3% over 3 years, if it turned out to be 1% over 3 years, our two options would be to increase the tax rate above the 12.5 cents that we promised voters, or use some of the M&O money to support that debt. That would be a decision for you guys that we would gladly give to you and ask you to direct us on which way to go. Yeah, that's really about it, because as I started going through this was already 11, and it already felt like an hour up here, because I really felt like it was deep, but I wanted to give you the chance, to kind of let me know, and it doesn't have to be now. You can send an email or call or come by. But was this helpful? How much depth do you want to see? Other topics of suggestion? I wanted to, again, try to start that conversation of here's what we're talking about with debt so that we're all on the same page. You know where this information can be found. If not, you're always welcome to call, email, come by, and we'll sit down and go through it. But I know that Mr. Rogers had brought up debt a while back, so I kind of wanted to go through it because I wasn't trying to ignore, your concerns about debt. I hope that I've addressed some of them. I'm sure I've sparked some others, but kind of wanted to at least have that conversation. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Colvin, I really appreciate this presentation. Could you send it to us so
Yes,
that
ma'am.
way we could study it?
Absolutely.
More than just the
Absolutely.
presentation?
I have
Thank
a
you.
question.
Yes, sir.
Given our current tax rate and our property values, how many more dollars do we have that we could issue in bonds without having a tax increase?
Okay, so.
And I'm going along with what Templeton presented with us tonight. That's why I asked that.
Okay, so you're about to see me squirm, because I would reach out to my professional, that'd be Doug Witt, and ask him. A lot of that's going to be dependent on how risky we're willing to get with assumed value growth. So if we wanted to assume 10% property value growth for the next 5 years, we could do it with no tax rate increase. The problem is we're not being really truthful to ourselves. We're not leaving us a fail-safe there. If we said no tax value growth over the next 5 years, we're not being truthful, but you're also looking at the worst case scenario. Well, hopefully worst case scenario. Hopefully there's not contraction in there. To answer your question, let me contact Mr. Witt, and I'll be happy to get you an answer and email that out and just kind of let you know.
That wasn't meant to be a trick question.
No, I got you. I just, there are many times you ask questions, I want to be able to answer them and not stand up here and skate, but that's one of those that it's going to just be a wild guess if I threw out a number at this point.
Okay.
So I will get with Mr. Witt and give you an answer.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, Mr. Collins? No?
Good.
No?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we will move to the consent agenda, which is item 4. We have items A through J. We can take these all in one motion, or if there's one or more than one you guys would like to remove and discuss and vote on individually, however you would like to proceed.
I would like to pull E.
Okay, to discuss and vote on individually, item E?
Yes.
Okay.
And myself, Indigo, aye.
Which one?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agendas items A, B, C, D, F, G, H, and J.
So move.
Motion by Dr. Langley, is there a second? Second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, item E, consideration with possible action to declare surplus property for sale to Advantage Academy.
My only question is, with all the moving of everything last year, I want to be sure all the principals had the opportunity to be sure that they could go through and be sure they couldn't use anything that we're selling to Advantage Academy. That's my only question.
So with this list that's actually in your board packet, there are a couple of things that say as many as we can spare. We sent this entire list to the campus principals and told them, hey, here's the plan.
that all of this is going to be declared surplus by the board with the intent to get out of the district. If you would like to, you are more than welcome to make an appointment or call, come by, whatever, and we will show you everything we have. You can claim it, you get it before anybody else gets it, and so we've gone from there and kind of pared this list down a little bit based off things that they've requested.
Thank you, Mr. Calden.
Yes,
I just
ma'am.
wanted to clarify that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions on item E? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve item E on the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Kriegel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McCutcheon. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, item I, consideration of possible action to authorize Ellis County Road and Bridge Precinct Number 4 to perform parking lot repairs and improvements around Curriculum Department and High School of Choice, DAEP, in accordance with interlocal agreement agreement approved November 12th, 2018.
Mr. Perry, can you kind of give us a Cliff Note version of this project?
Okay, so the Cliff Note version of it is, hopefully you got that attachment with the yellow blocks around Coleman and the backside of the curriculum area and high school of choice area. Jeff, can you pull it up to
Page 220.
While he's doing that, if you can take a visual in your head of the parking lot that goes back and surrounds the new curriculum area and high school of choice area. When we, the original plans for that whole project was to extend the parking to accommodate for when we had major trainings at that area. And that was kind of, it was taken out. I mean, it was taken out before I even walked into my office on that job. And this is going to provide some additional parking for back there, nicer parking, cleaning it up. It'll also provide some parking around for the special education staff and credit union staff. If you're looking at the building itself right now, if you're looking down at the very big square, the biggest square, that is going to be the parking lot for all of the curriculum area, high school of choice, drop-off. We're going to end up adding some awnings for the students and staff to where they if it's raining, parents are dropping off or outsiders coming in for training. There's also an existing awning there for the entrance for testing for when principals will be coming over picking up the STAR testing materials in the curriculum area. That's the old entrance to the CTE area where Mr. Boshear's office used to be. Around the front side where the I guess closest to, if you're looking at it, closest to the left side of the screen, there right now that was where the old greenhouse was at. And we looked at it and thought, well, should we clean it up, have grass there? We really need some parking there because the skinny block going up in between the buildings, that goes to where our special education area is for our behavior unit. And they're actually picked up and dropped off there by school buses. So the shorter yellow stripe that's closest to the building, and there's a strip of grass in between there, that'll actually now be a drive-through for the buses to pick up and drop off the kids. Right now, they're parking on the road, and the kids are having to walk all the way down, rain or shine, to be picked up by the buses. So thank you for that cursor. So that's, in a nutshell, that is the Cliff Notes version of that. It's to provide parking for much needed for curriculum area and DAP, high school of choice, and then also for the side area where we'll have some special education teachers and also for credit union parking if needed.
Is this a bond expenditure, or regular budget, or?
It'll be covered under some, how do you want me to say that, Ryan? The bond funds that we have left over. Okay. The, just for a side note, the the bids that came in or quotes that came in, the county was extremely better priced than the other companies, but to kind of give you an idea of what kind of work they did our parking lot here. And it's a pretty nice parking lot. So we're looking at basically the same product for that parking lot we're looking at here.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for consent agenda I.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Rogers, is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. Starnader. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, item number 5, action items. Consideration of possible action to approve resolution supporting registered sex offender ordinance. Is that you, Ms. Bridges?
Well, I have Ms. Bridges, she wrote it. But if you don't mind, sir, Mr. Rogers has kind of been the guardian angel of this.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Rogers?
I can speak to it a little bit. In the infancy of my tenure here, I was approached by a citizen wanting a similar ordinance to what surrounding districts had regarding registered sex offenders and the proximity to child safety zones. Long story short, I was not able to make it happen. I did approach city officials, and for one reason or another, I didn't make it happen. And the police chief picked it up here recently and made the presentation, and it was approved. And basically this resolution is just showing our obvious support of the new city ordinance. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Has been passed by the city.
Yes, it has. It was unanimously passed by the city a couple of weeks ago now. And we thought it would be a good gesture, not that we would ever object, but just to show our support and appreciation to the city for taking this action.
Okay, that's it. Any other discussion? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion. You want to make that motion, Mr. Rogers?
Sure, I make the motion we pass the resolution supporting the registered sex offender ordinance passed by the city of Waxahachie.
Is there a second?
I second.
I'll go with Dr. Langley. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, at this time, the board will convene in closed session. According to Texas Education Code, section 551.001 et sec, it is 8:12. Okay, it is 8:47. We will reconvene back into open session. The next item on our agenda will be human resources. Item number 1, that you be Mr. Avensheim.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I understand that we're going to take just one item out of the personnel report at this time. I know y'all got to get back into executive session to discuss some other items, but it is our extreme pleasure to be able to usher in a new era for the Waxahachie Lady Indians basketball team. We've got Coach Ashley Zuniga with us tonight. She comes to us from Cy Park High School, where she's the head coach there of a 6A program that's doing very well. She was also assistant coach, Cy Fair High School. She coached the Agumake sisters that are both in the WNBA and were All-Americans at Stanford. She was their position coach. She is just a fantastic ambassador for the sport. She's a fighting Texas Aggie, so I know that. There was a rumor, we dispelled it. We thought that she was a first grade student of Shelley Blaylock. It's actually her sister, who was first grade student at Plummer Elementary in Cedar Hill, but she and her mom worked with Mrs. Blaylock there in Cedar Hill.
And Ashley was my reset.
Okay. There we go.
High school.
There we go. So it is just,
I'll play them all.
there we go. It's our extreme pleasure to be welcoming Coach Zuniga to coach the Lady Indians, and I know Greg Reed has a special presentation for her.
Sure. Come up. Good. She has a lot of her family here with her tonight.
Wait, Coach Reed, let us make the motion first. Hang on. Okay, so my recommendation.
Yes, I'd like to make I have one question first. So, Ashley, what was your maiden name?
Important.
I feel pretty sure that I watched you play for Cedar Hill. Okay. I'd like to make the motion to hire Ashley Zuniga as our next girls basketball coach. This is going to lead us to great things.
Is there a second?
Second.
We got a motion by Ms. Kriegel, second by Mr. Rogers. Any other discussion?
Are we just approving the
We're just doing the one.
We're going
to go back to closed session. Yes, ma'am. We're trying not to keep the boss man there up too late tonight.
That's right.
So is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Welcome.
Reed.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You don't have to sit down. You guys don't have to sit back down. They're all in the room. Okay, at this time, we will go back into closed session. According to section 551.001 at the Texas Education Code, it is 8:53. reconvene back into open session. Item on our agenda, we'll come back to HR. Mr. Abendschein?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. At this time, I have for you the personnel report recommended to you by administration and your superintendent. It includes the hire. We already took one hire special, but it includes the hire of two additional employees, one a first grade teacher and another a teacher coach for the high school. Several resignations, just the normal course of the year, notice of retirement, and then a couple of changes of folks on contracts, and then several new positions that we're asking to be created at this time. You have the report before you, and so without going into each of those positions, I just urge you to approve the positions requested, with one additional position, an executive director of secondary education, in addition to the positions that are listed before you.
Any questions for Mr. Abendschein? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion approval of item number 7A1, Human Resources.
I move that we approve the Human Resources Report, 7A.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schofield, second by Ms. Starnader. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, at this time, I urge approval of the administrative contracts as presented to you on the list of 2019-20 WISD administrators.
Any questions, Mr. Abendschein? This time I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the administrative contracts as presented.
I move we approve the administrative contracts as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Dr. Langley, second by Mr. McCutcheon. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Then at this time, we have a separate item, and that is to request a program change pursuant to WISD Board Policy DFFB Local related to our curriculum coordinators. This is a move that we are requesting to give the district maximum flexibility in making sure that we're taking care of instructional needs, and to give us maximum flexibility to move our master teachers into roles where they will best fit the district's needs, our curriculum team's needs, to ensure that our teachers are able to perform at the highest level so that our students perform at the highest level. And this will essentially move curriculum coordinators from that position to instructional coaches on teacher contracts, where those who are performing well will be granted the same number of days as administrators. They'll be granted 20 more days than teachers, paid at the rate of teachers on step and on schedule. And we don't anticipate any of our current curriculum coordinators losing any portion of salary. And in fact, we anticipate them all gaining salary as they move to their appropriate step on the teacher scale with their master's degree and their 20 extra days.
Any questions for Mr. Abendschein? Okay, at this time, I entertain a motion to approve the change related to district curriculum coordinators pursuant to WISD Board Policy DFFB Local.
Mr. President, I move, can I just go ahead and say item 3 under?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we have a motion by Mr. McCutcheon, a second by Dr. Langley. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, under B, under our next item, consideration possible action to sell approximately 26.7 acres of land surrounding Turner Pre-K Academy. We will take no action on that item tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President.
That leads us to our most important part of them. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move that we adjourn this meeting right now.
By Mr. Schofield, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Craig. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. I have to ask for that one.